Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another Radio Cultural show. Here today, we're with Professor Glen Filson and Dr. Banidele Adekunle of the School of Environmental Design and Rural Development, and we'd like to welcome them to our show today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so maybe we'll start with Professor Filson and just ask him to introduce himself and describe his role here at the University of Guelph.
Well, I teach in a program called Capacity Development and Extension, but the research that connects me to this project is funded through the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. And so we do a lot of work with OMAFRA. And this is the work that they're particularly interested in right now because of the emerging markets that seem to be developing as a result of the growth in ethno-cultural foods, and that's why we're here today.
Okay. And Dr. Adekunle?
Thanks, Candice. From the School of Environmental Design, the same department as Professor Filson, and I've been working with him for since I started my PhD, but we started working on this project 4 years ago. So I'm a research associate and a special graduate faculty at the School of Environmental Design and Rural Development. So this project is very interesting because there's a need, and we need to fill there's a gap in information, and we are trying to provide that information and fill the niche so that farmers can make money, consumers can have their foods, and everybody will be happy.
Okay. Yeah, so Professor Filson mentioned about the project, and maybe you can just tell us a little bit more about it and what exactly is an ethnocultural vegetable.
Okay. Well, we got involved in this project, I guess, in fact, Delhi, if I can call him that for short, and Sri Setharatnam, two former students of mine who are anxious to eat their own vegetables, vegetables from their own culture, and really that's what ethnocultural vegetables are. They approached me when it was clear that Farmstart, for whom Sri works as the manager, farm manager, they were looking to see which vegetables were in highest demand for the recent explosion really of immigration from South Asia. There are now 600,000 800,000 South Asians, 600,000 Chinese, and about 400,000 Afro-Caribbean folks living in the Greater Toronto area. And they can't always get their own vegetables, and we're calling them ethnocultural vegetables. Sometimes you'll hear them referred to as world crops. Okay. So they had a project actually in mind, and we approached the Ontario Market Investment Fund, which is part of the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, and requested funding to try to determine what the demand really is for all of these vegetables in the GTA. And so that's how it started. We're now in a second phase, having determined that the demand was $61 million per month, basically, in the GTA. Mm-hmm. We then went back to OMAFRA and said, we need to promote this as a potential niche market for farmers in Ontario, because we know many of these vegetables can, in fact, be grown here in southern Ontario.
Right. Okay. And maybe Dele can tell us maybe just some of the vegetables that he would like to see here grown in Canada.
Some we grow, some won't. But you see, based on demand, maybe some in the greenhouse. Mm. But when I came to Canada, I came to Canada in 2003, you discover that even up till now, it's very difficult to get some veggies, especially for people from Afro-Caribbean, South Asia, or even Chinese. But the thing about the Chinese market is that it's more structured, because you have more Chinese immigrants who have been in this country for maybe more than 40 or 50 years. So they've integrated to the community, they know what's going on, they have money to buy land. So you see a lot of 300 acres of Chinese crops in Holland March and things like that. But you don't see that when it comes to Afro-Caribbeans and the South Asians. So it's very important. And we have crossover, like okra. is in high demand for the Afro-Caribbeans,
Right.
and it's also in high demand for the South Asians. So okra is very important, although people spell it as okra, but in Nigeria it's called okra.
Yes.
So, but you have amaranth is very important. Even up till now, is very scarce. If you go to Toronto, the ones that you see are very big, matured. You're supposed to harvest them when they are still like young, and you can enjoy the taste. But what you get even in Toronto, they are not that good. The quality is a problem. So, and eggplants.
Sorry, these are the ones that are imported.
Some are even produced locally.
Okay, but you said it's not that good.
Some of these farmers, they are not really sure about the standard that should be in place, the morphology of the crop. They just do it,
Right.
and at times they just do what they can get, or just. But if you go to like some stores, maybe some South Asian stores, and like Blue Sky in Toronto in the GTA, you will get some, but very scarce. So, but African eggplant is also a problem, especially among the Ghanaians. If you go to the first time I went to, when we were doing the research in 2009, it was through cultural associations and through ethnic stores. So personally, I interviewed people through the cultural associations. I went to one association called the Ewe Cultural Group. The first thing they told me is that they want African eggplant. Eggplant is required. South Asians, Chinese, but it's different because it's different varieties. So you have Chinese eggplant, Indian eggplant, African eggplant. But you see, they all want this eggplant.
Not the big purple eggplant, which is Italian, really. And that's the one that people are more familiar with
Right,
here.
this
Right?
eggplant.
So even for the Chinese, they will tell you that they can't get bamboo. Bamboo is still scarce for them. So they still have to import some of these things from abroad. So we know that eventually we can grow some of these crops in Canada, but we should be able to grow the ones we can grow.
Right.
And if there is demand, maybe we have to grow some in the greenhouse.
Okay.
So because if the people are ready to pay the premium, so for good quality, if there is demand, anything is possible.
Right. So the research money that you have is put into what different aspects of this project? So we educating the farmers? Are we seeing where the best places to grow some of these vegetables? Maybe you can tell us more about that.
We are on our side, although we have collaboration with Simcoe Research Station, with Vineland. So, but on our side, we are social scientists. So after estimating the demand, we have to look at the challenges and the barriers. We have to look at how are we going to educate people, both the consumers and the producers.
Right.
For the producers, we have to let them know that it's possible. The demand is there. You can produce it. Maybe you don't have the technical expertise, but you can be trained.
Right.
On the part of the consumers, we have to let them know that, okay, even if you are not from Trinidad and Tobago, you can still enjoy maybe banana, plantain, but people will have to teach you how to cook it.
Right.
And you can get other benefits from consuming amaranth. So maybe you don't want to be, diabetic. You want to avoid issues of high blood pressure. So many issues. You want to take crops and plants with high level of antioxidants because of cancer. So even you don't need to come from these cultural groups to really enjoy the benefits. So we have to educate the consumers on one side and also the producers on the other side, because the producers, most of them, they are from they are European descent, and they are not really sure. There's a cultural barrier, but they also don't know. So we have to educate them and train them. That's why we need extension, but we don't have extension in Ontario.
So we have a little bit of extension, but it's not really what it once was. And the other thing is we need to work with these horticulturalists, the plant ag people at Simcoe and at Vineland and so on, and we also need to understand what are the costs of production. Can we produce these as cheaply as they can be produced in Dominican Republic, for example, which is a source of a lot of our vegetables. I think something like 75% of these vegetables are presently imported.
Right.
So a large number of them are imported, but it doesn't mean we can't increase the local production of these and thereby increase the freshness and therefore the taste and in turn the nutritional value of these vegetables. I mean, when people get them old, they've traveled from another part of the world, they get here with all those food miles and all those greenhouse gases having been produced in the transportation of those vegetables here. They wind up eating vegetables that are not as healthy, don't taste like they used to taste when folks were back in Pakistan, and they don't have the same nutritional value. And they've also been, because of the travel and the length of the food miles, they've actually increased greenhouse gases throughout the world to some extent, and thereby have contributed to global warming. So we want to try to, there's so many reasons for producing them locally.
Right.
We want to try to reduce the ecological footprint.
Yes.
Now, I'm a person who likes my vegetables, and I'm one of the Afro-Caribbean descent. And I mean, mangoes are not a vegetable, but I always have problems buying mangoes here. You know, they look really nice, and I pick it up, and then I'm so disappointed. Yes. And after paying $1.50 for a mango that I could have probably gotten free at home, it's a great disappointment. So exactly. I know you touched a lot on some of the advantages of having these ethno cultural vegetables or ECVs grown here in Ontario. But maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the disadvantages or the cons of the project of having these vegetables grown here. You know, I was talking to Dele about some of this, so I don't know who would like to address it, because we have to admit, right, in any project that we undertake, there are going to be pros and cons.
One con, if you will, is that a lot of migrant labor are used here in Canada in our vegetable industry, and they're not really paid at the rate that they should be paid. So that, I mean, what I guess you're hinting at is that if we produce them, then that means we won't be importing your mangoes, right? But at the same time, there is employment for migrant labor from Barbados, from Mexico, from other parts of the Caribbean here through the seasonal worker program.
Right.
But there are reforms that are required in the seasonal worker program that would make it easier for them to organize and get a better get a better wage for the hard work that they have to do in producing these vegetables. But I think by the same token, it is an employment opportunity for many of them. And also, it's clear that certain vegetables we cannot compete with vegetables imported. We know Chinese producers here who have farms in Mexico because they want to provide their bok choy or pak choy or Shanghai bok choy and so on all year round, and they can't do that unless they have farms in the Caribbean or in Mexico. And they are doing that to some extent. So we have to look at all those other questions. Some of them are not social science questions. They're horticulture questions. We don't really have the answer to that, but we have to work with those people.
Okay, makes sense. And again, we're stressing too on the fact that there is the demand for it based on the research that you have done, and hopefully we can reach the supply as well from the little economics that I have. So in a recent article about your research, there was a mention about Farm Start, and you did mention it here in the interview today. Can you explain what it is and the significance?
Well, Farm Start has had two incubator farms. They call it incubator farms. And it really, as Deli said, except for the Chinese who've been here, well over 100 years, of course, much longer, and have been producing probably in the Holland Marsh, for example, a lot of their own vegetables themselves for maybe 30, 40 years. The South Asians and Afro-Caribbeans haven't had the opportunity to farm in Canada, although many have farming experience. And so until they're in a better economic position to be able to actually buy into larger, more commercial style farms, and there are a few, like Elam Farms, for example, Judy's Tropical Farms, which is Filipino and so on, Sri Lankan, Filipino, a few farms like that. We went to another farm which had a lot of Sikh workers, but it was basically farmers of European descent who were farming there. But until that time, the people who are in the business of actually training or picking up on their existing skills and expanding them and providing opportunities to give them plots of land, incubator farms like the McVean Farm, which is in Brampton, is Farm Start. And Sri Setharatnam is directly involved in bringing these farmers in and helping them get a plot of land and telling them which particular crops are most likely to be selling at in farmers markets and direct farm sales and so on. That's what Farm Start is very much involved in doing, teaching people how to farm here in the Canadian context. So Farm Start has been supporting us from the beginning, and along with, and we didn't mention it, the Toronto Food Policy Council and the Greater Toronto Agricultural Action Committee. They've also been supporting us. So we've had good support, in part because Farm Start is well connected to these various groups. Yeah.
Yes, definitely makes sense, and it's pretty good, as you were saying too. Helping out these farmers who are from the areas where ECVs are grown, and giving them the opportunity at Farm Start per se. Providing others with their expertise of how these vegetables are grown, and then ensuring that the quality of these vegetables will be good. So I think it's a great incentive. And so I know, Dele, you were speaking a little bit earlier about consumers and some of the producers should be trained or given some advice about how to grow these vegetables. So how do you intend to promote some of these initiatives, I guess?
Are you talking about the producers or the consumers?
For both. So for both. Okay.
Based on our side, as we said, we are social scientists. So the best we can do, although we have people that we are working with, different research stations, and when it comes to technicalities of growing, and we don't know.
Right.
So, but you see, we can pass the information along.
Yes.
So,
Example, the demand is there.
The demand is there, and based on the demand, some people have started doing the trials based on, we said, these are the 10 crops per group.
Yes.
Although we identified 120 vegetables consumed by these 3 cultural groups, which are the largest cultural groups in the GTA.
Right.
But having said that, we can't do trials on 120. So now, out of the 120, we identified 10 per group. Okay. And I think now Simcoe, Vineland, they are doing research on trials on like 5 per group. So what we are doing now is just to like disseminate information based on the fact that, we publish articles, and again, we also have Facebook page. We are on Twitter, we tweet anything, and we have blog posts on our blogger, ECV Ontario. So these are we have what we call multimedia, because it's a multimedia knowledge translation and transfer project. So we have all these things, but the thing is the content. So we need to get the content to our blog, to our Facebook, and to our Twitter. So what we do is that in the case of the consumers, we try to like educate them on the health benefits. And again, people ask us about the recipes. So we in the summer, we had a research assistant who is Caucasian, who was like going all over to meet like Afro-Caribbean, Chinese. So she would learn and then write a blog on how she was able to prepare egusi, okra soup, So that we now disseminate for the consumers.
Okay.
So and you can follow it at
So
ECV Ontario. Check ECV Ontario. That's where you'll see the blog, the Twitter, the Facebook page. But you're now involved in producing a documentary.
So we are working on a documentary that we are going to. For the first time, people will see it at our workshop. Our workshop is February next year. So that's another thing of
February 17th.
February 17th next year. That's another way of disseminating the information. So we hope to have people, everybody along the value chain, starting from the consumers, the wholesalers, the producers, the importers, at the conference. So at the conference, we are going to present things about the retail sector, about the wholesale sector, mostly through the Ontario Food Terminal, about the consumers. So these are the things and the challenges and the opportunities in the ECV market. So these are the things that we are going to present.
We're also doing talks, right?
Talks.
You've done a talk in Kitchener. I was in St. Williams speaking with farmers, also at Vineland speaking to retailers, wholesalers, and farmers. So we are actually physically going around the province to the extent that we can be invited to various events such as that horticultural trade fair to promote what we're doing with what potential exists in ECV Ontario for ethno-cultural vegetable production and consumption.
So we try as much as possible to update our blog. So like now we've been understudying the farmers market for like 6 months to see whether they have these crops, but so if you check our blog, you see our position. So whether it's meant for the upper crust or and whether people from these cultural groups are upper crust or not. If you check our blog, you see what we have discovered. So, but this is not conclusive. It's not conclusive until we have gone further and then analyze our data and our observation, talk to people better. So, but it's not about publications. It's also about finding ways and avenues to just pass the information to the stakeholders.
Right now, we have graduate students doing research on the supply chain or value chain, all the way from producers through wholesalers, retailers, assemblers to consumers. And we also have a graduate student looking at the prices and comparing prices at different ethnic stores, South Asian, Chinese, Afro-Caribbean, and also a couple of big supermarkets to see where the prices, and as you might expect, they're lower at the supermarket. No, not necessarily. We're finding that not necessarily cheaper. And also farmers markets often don't carry ethno-cultural vegetables and so on. So we are in the business of trying to do the social science side of this research.
Okay. It's interesting that you can say that, farmers market, they don't carry ethno-cultural vegetables. But you see, are the people from these cultural groups willing to go to the farmers market? Maybe they have the perception that the farmers market is expensive.
Right.
So these are the things that we are just trying to understand and then try to educate people so that eventually the farmers market will be more inclusive.
Right.
So we are just exploring, and it's a journey that we don't know where it's taking us to.
Right. Okay. And so maybe to wrap up then, you can, you mentioned you have the blogs, Facebook and Twitter, and you mentioned you can just look up ECV Ontario. Is that?
That's right.
I'm not a Twitter fan, so I'm not even sure.
It's easy. Just plug it into the search engine.
Okay, ECV Ontario.
So when it comes to tweeting, we have people we follow, and we have organizations and individuals following us. But the problem with using social media, we are not sure whether we are getting to farmers. So that's a challenge.
True.
But when it comes to consumers, we are sure.
Right.
But when it comes to farmers, we are still thinking about, we are getting to them, but we are not really sure. Are we getting to the farmers? So because
some approach us. Yeah. Some have directly approached us. How do we grow okra, for example? We love okra. We believe we can grow it, but we've had trouble this summer growing it. What's going wrong? And so on. So we do get questions from farmers.
Okay, that's good.
And we see them at the events that we go to speak at. But do they follow social media? Some do, but
we are trying to understand that better. We want to be able to get to farmers.
Right.
So the best we have for the blogs, we have a video channel, YouTube channel. So the easiest way to get to our blogs, to our Twitter, to our blog and videos is just to type ECV Ontario to Google.
In a search engine.
Yeah. So once you type it in, the best one is just go through Google. So once you do that, you'll get our Facebook, get our Twitter, the YouTube channel, the blog posts, and you have a sweat time, browsing through our channels.
Well, it's great that you're using a variety of media in order to get the word across. You're doing the workshops, or I'm attending events with farmers who may not be on the social media side, whereas the consumers they're looking at your websites and Facebook and everything like that. And Radio Cultural is very happy that we can also play a role in getting the word out about ECVs.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you. When I get to my office, I have to send our latest blog to you.
Please do. And maybe I can tell you about that on the next show.
Okay.
Okay, so we'd like to just thank again Professor Glen Filson and Dr. Banidele Adekunle for coming here today, for joining us on our show. And we hope that you will tune in for another Radio Cultural show next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.